Thanks to Grace for having me. One of the things about that is Grace invited me to come speak here. She put me on the stage. She trusted me. She gave me her trust to be here. She trusted that I wouldn't venture into forbidden topics. She trusted I'd stay generally on script, that I wouldn't run too far over my timeline. She gave me her trust. To each of you this afternoon, when you told your parents, oh, I'm leaving, I'm going to go up to Hammond, I'm going to go to the TEDx event, they trusted that that's where you actually were going. Your teachers each week, they trust that you will do your homework, that you'll use technology appropriately. Trust, in ways that are large and ways that are quite small, is a critical part of your life. You give it freely and you get it freely. As a federal prosecutor in my professional life, trust is perhaps my most important attribute. It is the thing that I often work hardest to foster, to try to figure out how to get others to trust me, to ensure that I maintain their trust. When I sit down and meet with an FBI agent and talk about an investigation or a case, it's crucial that they trust the advice that I give. When I go to my boss with an indictment or a recommendation on a sentence of imprisonment for someone that's been convicted of a crime, her approval of my recommendation is heavily influenced by the degree to which she trusts me. When I argue cases before judges, it's vital that they trust the representation and information that I'm providing them. When I stood before a jury of 12 men and women and explained the horrors of Dylan Roof's attack on parishioners at Mother Emanuel, the manner and degree in which that jury trusted me personally influenced the way they saw and understood the evidence that we put forward. And I had the great privilege to work with the survivors and family members of those that Roof executed. The most important thing that I had with them was their trust, their willingness to rely on me, despite the fact that they didn't know me that well. What is that trust? That's that willingness to rely upon another, the confidence in the unknown. Not knowing me, those victims and families developed a reason to trust me. So how do we get to that point? How do we get to the point where someone is willing to have confidence in me without knowing me very well? And what is that trust? It's not absolute. That willingness to hold someone in their hands is not absolute. President Reagan used to say, trust, but verify. The judge doesn't take me at my word without checking on it. My boss doesn't rubber stamp what I provide. That jury didn't sentence Dylan Roof to die merely because I asked for it. We trust, but we verify. Trust is what I get. Grace gave me her trust when she put me on the stage. But what do we give in order to get it? The circular answer is we act in a trustworthy manner. Doesn't really help us define that very well, does it? What do we give in order to get it? The answer is the things that we give are very, very difficult to articulate. We're honest. We're reliable. Right? Things that are very difficult to see and understand in someone else. I want to talk to you about a few things, a few proxies, a few ideas that I see people relying on to determine whether and to what degree to give their trust to somebody else. Commonality. We trust those who share our values, our experiences, our goals, our aims. Those who we find something in common with, we trust. What does that mean for someone like me as a lawyer? We try to identify those areas that we have in common and minimize the insignificant differences. When I'm talking about commonalities, I'm not talking about superficial similarities. I'm talking about meaningful beliefs, meaningful goals, ideas, and significant experiences in someone's life. The only way to know what those are is to listen intently. To start conversations with people in new settings by asking questions, not giving answers. Each of us in this room, each of us has hundreds and hundreds of different attributes, traits, beliefs, values, goals, experiences. Any two of you can sit down and you can find both differences and things that you share in common. If you're willing to listen, no matter how disparate you may seem, you can find those things that you have in common. And if you want them to trust you, you can learn to focus on those areas of common and shared values and diminish and make insignificant the superficial differences. But it's not just about listening. Trust is also about sharing. The more you know about someone, the more willing you are to trust them. So to be trusted, you must be willing to share. And I don't mean willing to share in this vague sense of overconfidence, being a braggart. Right? That's not true confidence. That's not true sharing. Right? Sharing in this context is an ability and a willingness to talk about vulnerabilities, to talk about limitations, failures, and mistakes. If you're going to share and you want to develop trust, you have to be willing to share those things with them, to have those conversations about yourself and others' perceptions. The reason Grace invited me to be with you today is not because we knew each other. In fact, we met this morning. The reason she could trust to put me on the stage is that we have a mutual friend in common. Someone who he trusts me and she trusts her, and so his perception was sufficient for Grace to have some trust in me. When you go on internet sites like eBay or Uber, you see other people's perceptions of an individual reflected in their ratings or rankings or reports. We often look at what others' perceptions are to determine whether that's someone we should trust or not. When I'm in a courtroom and everything's going well, I recognize that jury's not just looking at me when I'm speaking, they're looking at me when I'm not. They're looking at my interactions, not just with opposing counsel, but with the bailiff, with the court staff, with my FBI agents, my co-counsel, my support. They're looking at my interactions with each of them to see how I treat them, but maybe just as importantly, how they treat me. Do they exhibit that they trust me? Those perceptions of others are a powerful way where we determine whether that is someone that we should trust or whether we, in fact, should be trusted. So, we've talked a little bit about what trust is and what are some of the ideas that we talk about. But trust to do what? When I'm standing in front of a jury, and everything is going just like we want it to, and that jury has the utmost confidence in me and my ability to convey to them exactly what's happened in a fair and balanced manner, they trust me. But trust me to do what? If one of them had a heart attack, not a single juror would trust me to provide open heart surgery. Not a single juror is walking up to me afterwards and saying, "Would you manage my money?" They trust me to stay in my lane. They trust me to be a prosecutor, to be a lawyer, to help tell the story of what happened? They don't trust me to be somebody else. They don't trust me to try to do something that I'm not, or be someone that I'm not. So I talk about this primarily in the context of my professional career. And it affects you as students, as employees, as leaders of student organizations. But it also affects you with your friends. Studies indicate to us that your ability to trust others and your inclination to be trusted by others is a powerful suggestion, a powerful predictor of your subjective well-being. Right? If you trust and are trusted, you will be much happier. Without that trust, not only will your friendships be few in number, but they'll be shallow and less meaningful. So when I talk about it in a professional context, that I work hard to foster trust as a prosecutor, I also work hard to do it in a personal context as well. Trying to highlight with my friends what we share in common and ignore the superficial differences. To listen intently to them and their issues and share my own real-life problems. To do the little things that others can see and that they can't, like notes and texts, ensuring I only make promises that I can keep. And maybe most importantly, I ensure that I stay in my lane. I remain true to who I am. And I don't try to be somebody that I'm not with those friends. So today I invite you, both as high school students, as future employers, as leaders, and as friends, I invite you to spend a little time thinking about how you can foster a little bit more trust in your life. Thank you.